Despite interest and overtures from the NBA, Kevin Young's decided that Provo is where he wants to be for the foreseeable future, and that is great news for BYU.
You are Locked On Cougars, your daily podcast on the BYU Cougars, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, everybody? Welcome into Locked On Cougars, your daily podcast focused on the BYU Cougars. I'm Jake Hatch, executive producer of the KSL Sports Zone in Salt Lake City, Utah, and a 13-year credentialed media member at BYU. I am your resident BYU expert and insider on this here podcast. And as always, we're covering everything BYU. So thank you for making it your first listen of the day. All right, coming up on today's show, we're going to talk about the big news yesterday. Kevin Young inking a long-term extension with the BYU basketball program and the implications of that. We'll also talk about BYU football recruiting. Is it a two-horse race? Have the USC Trojans fallen out of favor for Rider Lions, and is BYU and the Oregon Ducks? We'll dig into that, and then we'll finish up as we always do the week with our weekly mailbag with our Locked On Cougars Insider Group. All right, so right at the outset, let's talk BYU basketball, and great news for BYU in terms of Kevin Young signing a long-term extension with the Cougars. Now, let me take you back to the day that Brian Santiago was introduced at BYU as their new athletic director. He made a pointed comment at the tail end of his media scrum with us, saying that he wanted all of BYU's coaches to be locked in. And then by name, he said, in particular, Kevin Young. I was told by multiple people, sources, if you want to call them that was not circumstantial, that comment. It's because at that point, the Phoenix Suns, Matt Ishbia and his brain trust down there in the NBA were putting a pretty hard press on Kevin Young to return to the Valley, as they call it down there, and become the new head coach of the Phoenix Suns, taking over a franchise that he had obviously come from to BYU. Why would the Phoenix Suns want him? Well, at one point, he was the highest paid assistant in the NBA, and for good reason why they would want him back, because he was a guy that multiple Phoenix Suns players, in particular Devin Booker, Kevin Durant, former son of Chris Paul among them, who absolutely love what Kevin Young does as a coach and absolutely would have loved to have him back with the Phoenix Suns. Well, BYU decided, you know what? We're not going to just lay down and say, hey, thanks, but have a great time. They're obviously interested in keeping the good times rolling because they invested significant capital to even get Kevin Young to Provo in the first place, and to see him leave after what at that point would have been just over a year, 1 year on the job, would have been a really tough blow to a program that already has seen some upheaval. Remember, they lost Mark Pope the year before that. That would have been 2 or 3 head coaches in 3 years. Been really interesting time had that played out. But to BYU's credit, they went to Kevin Young and his agent and his team and said, hey, what'll it take? And apparently they got the deal done, because shortly after that press conference, there was a report that came out that I think it was Chris Haynes from Yahoo Sports said the Elite Eight, as he called them, of coaching finalists for the Phoenix Suns position. It had been whittled down to 8, as he called the Elite Eight. And among those was not Kevin Young's name. Now, Kevin Young's name had been mentioned when it was a bigger field, 10, 15 candidates. Well, Kevin Young essentially, I think, took himself out of the conversation because he locked it in with BYU. Is it circumstantial that they announced the extension for him the day after the Phoenix Suns hired Jordan Ott, a Cleveland Cavaliers assistant? Maybe, maybe not. But the bigger news is, as a Cougar fan, you can safely feel like Kevin Young is invested with the BYU Cougars. He could have made more money going back to the NBA. There's no doubt about it. Obviously, he probably wouldn't got the same term in terms of a contract from the NBA, because typically it's a 4 or 5 year deal when you're working as a head coach in the NBA. College, Kevin Young got a 7-year deal right out the outset for BYU. So he just finished year 1 of what was a 7-year pact. Now, with an extension, you would imagine the BYU tacked on 2 to 3 years. So are we looking all told at maybe Kevin Young having a 10-year deal all told? And how much money? The reports were originally it was a 7-year, $30 million deal, which is obviously a shade over $4 million annually. Did they raise it to $5.5, $6 million? I don't think it really matters in that circumstance, because simply put, Kevin Young understands what he's got built here in Provo, and it looks like he's ready to lock it in. Also, do I believe that this is the last time Kevin Young is going to have NBA interest? Absolutely not. if BYU basketball, we talked about it yesterday, that the expectations for this BYU basketball squad are absolutely sky high, and for good reason. They have put together an incredible team headlined by one of the top freshmen in the entire country, if not the top freshman, in AJ DeBonsa. And the expectations are Elite Eight, Final Four, absolutely sky high, record breaking type stuff. And if they accomplish that, you can guarantee the NBA teams will be prowling around as soon as next year for Kevin Young's signature to sign with them as their new head coach. He is a basketball savant. He understands at a deep level basketball and its inner workings, and absolutely gets the best out of his players. Players that are around Kevin Young come away from him just absolutely enthralled with the way he operates. He is a player's coach, and I respect the heck out of it, because it can be hard to connect with people of a different generation. I can tell you as a dad, well, you have a young generation coming up. It can be hard to connect with them at times. Kevin Young has bridged that gap, and he has got these players believing in him. And obviously Cougar Nation believes in him as well, because he delivered a Sweet 16 year one on the job. That was just the third time in 45 years. They averaged 15 years between Sweet 16 appearances. And the hope is this year that they go from Sweet 16 to, Elite Eight, Final Four, maybe a national championship. That's the good news for a guy like Kevin Young, is that he has got everything at his disposal right now. I would imagine he obviously probably worked in some stuff with regards to taking care of his assistants, increasing the NIL pool, everything that's going to help him have success as a head coach at BYU, I'm sure was visited in these contract extension talks. But yeah, as they say, he's going to be here for the foreseeable future. I take that with a grain of salt, because, as I said, there's already NBA interest in this guy. You can't tell me that it's not going to happen as soon as next year again. And maybe at some point, the money, the allure of going back to the pro game will attract him back there. But the other thing he needs to factor in is his family situation. His wife has been very clear, and many of you know this, that she wanted a more stable and more, more grounded family life where he could be around his kids more. And he's got young kids. And he just announced to the Utah Valley Chamber of Commerce yesterday. I know that Jay Drew also revealed it, but I can tell you, knowing people that I know that were in the meeting that Kevin Young spoke at to the Utah Valley Chamber, they announced he's having his fourth kid. They're having a daughter later on this year. So yeah, the family element is absolutely in play here, but Kevin is an NBA guy. He's worked almost the entirety of his career, sans really 2 years. He did a year at UVU before getting into the pro game, and then the year obviously here at BYU. Outside of that, his entire coaching career has been in the professional ranks, whether at the G League level or at the NBA level. And that pull to go back to the pro game is going to obviously continue to be there for some time. Now, could it get out of his system at some point and decides that college is where he needs to be at? Sure. But I really respect the fact that BYU didn't just kind of lay down and say, hey, Kevin, thank you for your time. Have a great time in the NBA. They fought fire with fire. They saw what the Phoenix Suns were doing and said, you know what, we're going to keep our guy here. And I respect the heck out of that as well, is the fact that BYU understood they got a good thing going here, and they did not want to blow it up and have to turn it over for a third straight offseason. That would have been really, really tough for this program to recover from. And the good news is they got their guy, they got him locked in, and we'll see how it goes, but it sure looks like this coming season is going to be one for the ages for the Cougars, and I am excited for it. They have scheduled all kinds of non-conference games. We're still awaiting the Big 12 conference slate, but top to bottom, in my opinion, it is the best basketball conference in the country, and BYU should be right there among the nation's elite. So get ready, everybody. I think is it 150 days today? It might be that or tomorrow. We reach 150 days away from tip-off on the 2025-2026 BYU basketball season. But in some ways, I wish it was here tomorrow, because things are looking really, really good for the BYU Cougars. All right. Could things be looking good for the BYU football Cougars? Now, they're in pursuit, obviously, of five-star prospect Ryder Lyons. Reports say that he has at least moved a visit to the USC Trojans they were supposed to take this weekend. Is it now down to a two-horse race? Are the BYU Cougars fighting with the Oregon Ducks for this five-star prospect signature? We'll try and make heads and tails of that next as we roll on right here on Locked On Cougars. Today's show is brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. Of course, the NBA Finals are in full swing. If you did not watch last night's game, What an iconic moment from Tyrese Halliburton. They never led, speaking of the Indiana Pacers, until 0.3 seconds remaining. And that's the thing about the NBA playoffs. There is absolutely can't miss moments, major momentum shifts, highlight-worthy performances every single night. And whether it's a game-winning shot or a breakout player, there's never been a better time to get in on the action and do it with our friends over at FanDuel. Which players are going to show up in the biggest moments, and how could tracking those trends help you build your next bet? Could you put together a same-game parlay as you watch games unfold to get you an extra big payout? And how could a $200 bonus add to the excitement of you watching these games? I think it would add quite a bit to that. So obviously you can get started today. If you're new to FanDuel, it's the perfect time to start right now. Head to FanDuel.com and place your first $5 bet. If it wins, you get $200 in bonus bets, just like that. It's as simple as it could be. Make every moment more and do it with our friends over at FanDuel, as they are an official sports betting partner of the NBA. Thank you once again for making Locked On Cougars your first listen of the day. All right, another request for you guys. If you have not done so already, please subscribe, rate, review, share this show with your family and friends. Let them know it's daily BYU content available on demand. Really, we're a one-man operation. Speaking of myself, obviously we have Locked On, the network behind us, but your guys' help is what helps build this audience. So thank you in advance for all of your help. And also, if you have interest in advertising with the show, we'd love to help you guys out as well. Reach out to us. LockedOnBYU@gmail.com is the email address. We'll get you on the path to advertising success right here on Locked On Cougars and the Locked On Podcast Network, where, of course, I like to say it's your team every day. All right, let's talk BYU football. Kalani Sitake and the BYU Cougars are on an incredible hot streak in the 2026 recruiting cycle. It could get even hotter, and they could get their crown jewel if Ryder Lyons decides that he is going to be a BYU Cougar. Now, many of you know the backstory with Ryder Lyons, a five-star prospect at a Folsom High School, a guy who's a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. He has plans to go on a mission and spend, he says, 1 year in the mission field. All of that is to say the BYU, they want to really kind of assert themselves in the national consciousness when it comes to recruiting as a member of the Power Four and the Big 12. Landing a kid of Ryder Lyons' capability due to his connections, obviously, with the school, the faith that sponsors it, and just simply put, he's a stud football player, be a major recruiting win for BYU. It's kind of been a three-horse race to this point. USC, where his older brother Walker plays, was figured to be a sentimental pick, obviously, because his brother's there. The Oregon Ducks, with their NIL prowess, have obviously been in the conversation with every player, feels like, up and down the West Coast, and they're very much in the mix here. And then it was BYU. Now, there's been a lot of people out there from 24/7 Sports, On3, a number of other outlets who've said that BYU is the dark horse in this race, and I can pretty much confirm that. BYU's kind of been tracking all along. Like I said, the connections he has, got a lot of family connection to BYU. And the interesting part was there were reports from 24/7 Sports as recently as yesterday that Ryder Lyons has at least canceled for now an official visit he had to go to LA and visit USC this weekend. He had originally planned to visit USC this weekend, go to Oregon next weekend, and then BYU is going to get the last of the 3 official visits he had revealed on June 20th. So essentially, the Cougars are going to get the last say. Him canceling this USC trip is very curious. I don't know what exactly to make of it, but there's a lot of people out there that think that it may have essentially said that USC, they're out. They're not in the mix here. Now, they obviously, Lincoln Riley and the USC Trojans, they are recruiting players at every level from every recruiting class, and they have obviously targeted what are some 2027 cycle quarterbacks, because that's what Ryder Lyons ultimately would be because of his mission service, and that may push them down the list. So now it's the Ducks versus the Cougars. That's the thing about this, is which program will win out in this race. BYU has got as good a shot as anybody on this, and truthfully, you want Ryder Lyons to be the BMOC, the big man on campus? Come to Provo, Utah. Come play at BYU. You can get lost in the shuffle at other programs like an Oregon and a USC because, simply put, they have got stockpiles of guys of your caliber. Now, would it be nice for BYU at some point to have a stockpile of their own of 4- and 5-star talents? Sure, but the funny thing is, if you haven't been paying attention, BYU is kind of racking up a bunch of 4-star guys right now. The recruiting cycle this past year, the transfer portal cycle in particular, brought a number of those guys to this program. But there's a difference, obviously, between the 4-star and the 5-star level. 5-star level, at least according to 24/7 Sports, is they project you at some point down the line in your college career to be a first-round NFL draft pick. That is what a 5-star designation that Rider Lions carries comes with. That's the weight. That's the expectation. And those guys, they don't grow on trees. BYU assigned, if I'm not mistaken, at least 2, what would you consider 5-star prospects? Ben Olsen, way back, was that in 02 when he signed? Maybe 03. And then Jake Heaps in 2010. Now, things did not work out for either one of those guys in a Cougar uniform, and quite frankly, didn't work out overall because they never lived up to the billing as a 5-star prospect. But Rider Lyons, he is everything that BYU could hope for in terms of recruiting, news, juice, momentum, everything that BYU wants as a member of the Power Four gets legitimized, and it's already pretty legit for BYU, but it gets legitimized even more so if they win this recruiting battle. It would show that BYU can once again compete with the nation's best when it comes to recruiting. Their NIL prowess is absolutely on display here because, simply put, you don't get a quarterback of Rider Lions caliber without putting together a pretty lucrative NIL package to obviously add to what you can offer him in terms of playing time and everything else that BYU would offer. It would be a huge, just a monumental recruiting win for BYU to win this battle. And if he's backed off USC, that means it's down to 2. And until BYU's not in it, they're absolutely in it. I'm getting a sneaking suspicion, and I'm not reporting anything. This is just my personal gut feeling on this, that BYU is in the lead. I really do think that. And they're going to be Oregon Duck fans who are probably climbing all over mentions. You don't know what you're talking about. Blah, blah, blah. Great. Maybe I don't know what I'm talking about. Maybe he does pick the Ducks. Maybe he's in green and gold for his college career. But I'm telling you, reading the tea leaves, my gut feeling, my gut reaction to all of this is that little old BYU is in the lead for Rider Lions. That's not a report. That's not me reciting any inside intel. It's just me and my gut feeling on the matter right now. Now, could that gut feeling change tomorrow? Could the recruiting winds change as they often do? Absolutely. Things change literally day by day, hour by hour. And especially when you have prospects of this caliber, it does change often. But right now, it sure looks like the Cougars have got as good a shot as anybody to get what would be, truthfully, the crown jewel of an already extremely strong 2026 recruiting cycle, and would only embolden BYU and kind of like, I guess, not embolden, but really kind of point to, yeah, BYU's got juice on the recruiting trail, and it is national. That's what's at stake here for BYU when it comes to Rider Lions. All right, coming up next, we're going to talk a little bit about what you guys want to talk about. I throw it out to our Locked On Cougars Insider Group every single week to kind of get their feel for what they want to know about Cougar Nation. And obviously, there's a lot of interest in the Rider Lions discussion. Oh, one thing I should pass along, I guess I just can add this to the conversation about Rider before we get to the mailbag, is the other thing about the Rider Lions situation is when it comes to him, he would have other players. And now they've already got Brock Harris locked in. You got other 4-star talents who've already signed up with BYU in terms of their commitments to the 2026 recruiting cycle. But if you get a 5-star quarterback, all of a sudden there's a lot of kids who would like to play with a quarterback of that caliber. And if BYU has him in their back pocket, guess what? All of a sudden, the recruiting pitch to a whole lot more of these young men out there that are legit 4 and maybe potentially 5-star talents. Well, that pitch gets a lot better and more compelling from BYU if they can say, hey, we got this quarterback over here. We'd like you to come in and help us chase a national championship, chase a Big 12 title. To have the caliber of athletes like a Rider Lions in your recruiting class and committed, that would completely open up those doors for those athletes to be, I think, a whole lot more interested than they may be otherwise. And there's interest, I think, but you're talking about going from like, hey, that's cool about BYU to, hey, BYU, so what do you guys got going on here? That's kind of the difference. If you can kind of get the gist of what I'm explaining here, is that he would really, I think, by himself, bring a lot of attention to and a lot of compelling recruiting pitches that BYU could use if he does commit to the Cougars. Now, only time will tell because he's expected to make these official visits, and then at some point before his senior season kicks off, coming up later this summer, the hope is that BYU will be the hat he's wearing and he'll be donning the blue and white. We'll see what happens. I just wanted to pass that along. All right. Time to get to the mailbag. You guys obviously respond in force as you do every single week from the Locked On Cougars Insider Group. And we'll answer as many questions as we have in the time remaining. And we'll do that next right here on Locked On Cougars. Thank you once again for making Locked On Cougars your first listen of the day. If you have not done so already and like to ask questions on this here podcast, I reserve that right for our Locked On Cougars Insider Group. Now, some of you on social media have reacted negatively to that, but you know what? It's a perk. I'm not gonna apologize for it. It's something that people spend their hard-earned money being parts of the Locked On Cougars Insider Group, and I'm going to reserve some perks for them. And one of them is the mailbag. So if you'd like to be a part of it, you get a 14-day free trial. You get 2 weeks worth of questions in if you want. And it's just $5 a month to be a part of the Insiders Group after that. I think it's an absolutely screaming deal. And from what I understand, it might be the cheapest deal in terms of getting that insider intel that you will find anywhere else. So join us today on the Locked On Cougars Insider Group, and the link, you can find it in the show notes below, whether you're watching this on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast. All right, on to the questions here. All right, good question here from Jesse. Is there any chance that Ryder Lions moved USC to after BYU's? He says, I feel like one of the main things we, speaking of BYU, have going for us is that if we get the final word. If we lost that, it would hurt our chances. Now, that would hurt BYU's chances if USC is an option for him and he takes a visit, whether it's in June, coming up, maybe holds off until the season and visits USC. Yeah, that would hurt BYU's chances, Jesse. But taking it at face value right now, the fact that Ryder is not visiting USC, that means there's something going for BYU. That's the good news if you're a Cougar fan. Okay, we got a kind of a mix of football and basketball related questions, as well as some that are off the beaten path. I'm just kind of mix and match them. So Luke asked a good question here. Got one for you here. What is your go-to gas station food or snack? He said, personally, I'm a big Maverick guy, so I'm a sucker for their burritos, but yours can be from any franchise. Now, Luke, I am not a guy who ventures to a lot of convenience stores. I will say that right at the outset, but I did at one point really enjoy, they used to call it the Moab, the mother of all burritos. It was a breakfast burrito from Maverick. Absolutely love that bad boy. I also am a big fan. And this goes back to my mission in Taiwan. There's 7-Elevens everywhere in Taiwan. Like there's one street in particular in Kaohsiung, Taiwan. I remember standing on a corner of the street. It's a big thoroughfare. It's one of the major streets in Kaohsiung. And if you look either direction down the street, and you're standing in front of a 7-Eleven. I remember doing this, standing in front of a 7-Eleven and looking either direction. I could see, I think, 5 in one direction and 7 in the others. They are literally like every block in Taiwan. And when I got nostalgic for something American when I was out there in Taiwan, I would walk into what they call a 7 and I would get pizza, pepperoni pizza. And to this day, there is something about a 7-Eleven slice of pepperoni pizza that sticks with me, and it deals with my mission. So there you go. A couple answers for you. But that Moab burrito, I don't know if it's still around. Like I said, I don't frequent a lot of convenience stores these days. But those two things, I guess, will answer the question for you. Jaden, if you were to make the odds for Ryder coming to BYU, what would you set the line at? Ooh, good question here for Jaden. I would say right now it's truly a 50-50 shot. If USC is truly fallen back in the race, if it is truly the 2-horse race, I think it's 50-50 between the Ducks and the Cougars. I think that would be the odds I put on it. Oh man. Okay. There's Preston asked the same question. What would you think the chances are that Ryder comes to BYU? I'd say 50-50 at this juncture. Now, Preston also asked another question. He says, great news to hear about Kevin Young. Realistically, how long do you think his contract is for? So original deal 7 years. And I can report that with pretty good authority because I have pretty good intel on that. I would imagine he's finished year 1. They re-up that, maybe tack on 2 to 3 years. So we're looking at an 8 or a 9-year deal, and all told, maybe it's a decade's worth a long contract. I'm thinking of 10 years. That's what I would imagine it is. I think that the contract, the length is maybe not the big question here. It's more of the buyout figure. And a couple of you asked that question. Oh yeah, here we go. Ryan, what guarantee do we have that Kevin Young will remain at BYU and not get bought out by an NBA team? Ryan, simply put, you don't have a guarantee of that. And I think there was another question here. Tate, do you think Kevin Young's contract has a buyout in it, or do you think he's definitely tied to Provo for the full contract? There's a buyout. You always have a buyout. That is the only recompense you have as a program and as a school with these coaches is to have buyouts, to force people to pay you for the right to take your coach away from you. So there is absolutely a buyout. And in fact, I think with this new contract, I don't know this, but this is just me speaking, knowing how contracts work. I think that buyout probably went up in this new deal, like in terms of how much money you're going to have to pay for a team or another program to come and poach Kevin Young away. That number went up, I'm sure, significantly from BYU's end. Now, does that stop an NBA team from paying it out? No, absolutely not. We have seen NBA owners pay coaches multiple tens of millions of dollars to go away. I talked about Matt Ishbia and the interest from the Phoenix Suns for Kevin Young. Matt Ishbia is on the hook to play both Frank Vogel and Mike Budenholzer, the last two coaches in Phoenix, for multiple years to come. Their buyouts. They have to. It was a 4-year, $40 million deal for Mike Budenholzer. He got $10 million, worked less than 1 year on the job, and is owed another $30 million for the next 3 years. It's good work if you can get it in terms of buyouts if you're a coach. So, yeah, is there anything to stop an NBA team if they want Kevin Young from prying him away? Outside of him just not wanting to leave Provo? No, anything is possible at this point. And once again, I will reiterate, that interest will come right back around next year. I fully expect it. The speculation, the reports, whatever it will be there next year. There's just zero doubt about that. Let's see. So yeah, hopefully that answers the question, Ryan and Tate. There is a contract buyout in it, but what guarantee do we have? You have no guarantee. Maybe the best guarantee you got is hope that Kevin Young's wife loves Provo and says, I'm not moving. That would be the best guarantee you probably could get. Gary, another basketball question here. When Jake Wallin went into the portal, do you think he was hoping to get back to BYU? It's a good question. I don't necessarily think that he was looking to get back to BYU. I think Wallin was just looking for an opportunity to play. Now, he will play against BYU because he signed with Clemson, who BYU will face at Madison Square Garden in December. He also mentions this, speaking of Gary, is a 1-year mission a thing? No, it's not. Now, here's the deal. Missions are at will. Like, you go on a mission and you can leave at any point. There's nothing holding you in the mission field if you really want to go home. Any of you who served a mission know exactly what I'm talking about. You could leave at any point. And that's why I think that Ryder Lyons, he's going to accept a 2-year call, but he'll serve a year's worth of it and then come home. I can't blame him. If that's how he wants to go about things, that's his prerogative. The other thing is his brother Walker had a mission called to Norway and served 14 months. So it was a little over a year. So and you mentioned here that the newspaper article mentioned that Ryder Lyons is a mission first guy, but may opt to go on a 1-year mission. I knew seniors have multiple options because I have 2 friends who went on senior missions, and you're right. Senior mission couples who are obviously retired or a little bit older in terms of their age, they can serve 6, 12, 18, 24 months. You can pick the length in that. When it comes to the regular missions that young men and young women serve, it's 18 months for young women and it's 2 years for young men in the standard mission options. Has that changed? If you work in church headquarters and you can correct me on that, I'd love to hear it. But everything that I have heard from people that I would feel like would know, a 1-year mission is not a thing. It's just you're going out for 1 year and then opting to go home. Hopefully that clears that up a little bit here. Good questions. Curtis, it seems like if Ryder Lyons doesn't go to USC, BYU is a great shot. Isn't his brother at USC? That's why I thought he might go there over BYU or somewhere else. I thought so too, Curtis, but if he really is backed off USC, apparently his bond with Walker, his older brother, speaking of Ryder, apparently that was not a thing. Let's see. Okay, good questions here. Danny Drew, does Kalani Sitake like Twizzlers or Red Vines? Danny, I have no idea, but I'm happy to ask him when I get a chance. I will answer it for myself. It's maybe controversial. I'm a Twizzlers guy. My wife's a Red Vines fan, and she'll never forgive me for the fact I'm a Twizzlers fan, but it's what I grew up with. I think it's what you grow up with. All right. Donovan, good question here. If we go with a new QB this season, who is more likely to take over Bear Bachmeier or Hillstetter? Who do you think who do you think BYU will pick? Excuse me, I'm trying to correct this here. It says my pick would probably be Bachmeier or Bourget because they both played in power conferences. Now they did not play in power conferences. Speaking of Bourget, that was at the G5 level in the MAC. But he says also I would take it for Retzlaff pending these allegations against him. I really hope that Retzlaff some way they go away so he can remain the captain of the football team. It's a great point there, Donovan. You would like to see Jake Retzlaff remain in the program. I completely get that, but right now, if you were to ask me, I think the conversation is steered towards experience. Could Bear Bachmeier take over at some point? Sure. But I think right now you would probably put your money more on the McKay Hillstead versus Trayson Bourget, at least in my book. That's my personal opinion. But you like Bourget or Bachmeier? I can't tell you you're wrong because I think all 3 of them have a shot at it. Oh, geez. There are so many good questions here. So as always,